Welcome to Cooperville.
Do you know what's fun to do in Cooperville? Pack up your shit and get the fuck out!
Listen. www.welcometocooperville.com. Who the fuck says www anymore? I can't even say it. www. Stop that. The Welcome to Cooperville podcast. On demand anywhere quality podcasts are available. And some places where cheap podcasts are available.
Yeah, the local gas station has some.
Subscribe, get updates, feel better about your life. Welcome to Cooperville.com. Check.
Welcome to Cooperville!
Make sure you use a coaster. The wife gets upset when we leave rings on the tables.
In 3, 2, 1. He is the Preachin' Rican. He is Carlos Ricard. CJ, he is got an amazing story that I'm so glad that entered into my universe, because if you've been following the podcast, and to all of you who have been following it, I truly appreciate you going on this this journey with me. But when you get the chance to talk to some people and you have them on and you have a conversation and they're like, you need to talk to this individual, or you need to have this person on your podcast. And Jim Lucas, who was on episode 36 of the podcast from Chip Magnet Salsa, we wrapped up and he was giddy as Jim Lucas can be, and he was like, You know who you need to have on here? You need to have on the Preachin' Rican. And now he is here. CJ, hello. Welcome to the Welcome to Cooperville podcast, my friend.
Thank you for having me, bud. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
No, it's mine, because like I said, when Jim kind of led me to the gate, actually first Jim yelled at me, because that's what he does. I have been, and we kind of talked about a little bit about this during before we started recording here, and I am going through, because I consider myself on a journey right now. Fitness became a big part of that, and kind of changing my habits really has opened up this whole new world for me. So I started doing like really things that were outside of my wheelhouse, like getting up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and going running, really no matter what the conditions are. And as part of my self-accountability of that journey, I was putting up videos on Instagram of, it's 4:40 and it's 37 degrees, and here we are, running a couple miles through the sprawling metropolis of Altoona. And so Jim was like, I want to say thank you for posting those videos, because it makes me feel like shit, and then it makes me get up and go and hit the treadmill for a little bit. So
that's the point.
That's
I mean, inadvertently, that's what kind of
exactly it helped. It helped inspire him and some others too. And when he mentioned that you had these videos that you were doing on a daily. I started checking them out, and we finally connected and got you on. But man, to read the story behind it in your bio, man, this is going to be one of those episodes. I have a feeling, just going into it, that when people get done listening to this, they are going to look at things that they title obstacles in their life, brick walls, the can'ts. I can't do that because this is in the way. They're going to hear your stories of the things that you've overcome, and they're going to look at their excuses as, well, I'm pretty sure I can, if CJ can get through that, I'm pretty sure I can get through 6 a.m. is too early, or it's too cold, but I'm going to miss my favorite show, because you have an incredible story that I can't wait to dive into. So, with that,
thank you.
Where like originally, where are you from this area? Are you from out of the great state of Wisconsin? Where are you from?
I've been here 9 years, but I'm from the East Coast. I'm an East Coast boy. I was born in Puerto Rico, though, but I left there when I was, I'd say, about 3 years old. So I grew up in Connecticut, Massachusetts, those two states.
Right. And you had not what you would call the most ideal childhood, and that is probably putting it as lightly as somebody has ever phrased it to you. But tell me about the growing up. I mean, it was a struggle. I think, a lot of kids, I look at my child, and I say, man, you have it good. You got all the technology, you got all the knowledge at your fingertips. You got a house, you got the food that you want, and you're picky about that.
You have no idea.
And I reflect back at mine, and it wasn't as great as he has it, but my struggles were not, they were very first world. And
sure.
And so to I want you to, kind of expound upon growing up and kind of how it led you down some very scary paths, and starting at a young age and even into your 20s.
Well, before I do that, here's my philosophy, right? And this is what I discovered after doing speeches and meeting young adults and, high school kids or whatnot. I went through a lot. I had to overcome a lot. I mean, at an early age. But at the end of the day, Timmy didn't have that kind of upbringing. Obviously either was privileged or better or,
right.
Less issues. But when Timmy was depressed, when Timmy was sad, when Timmy was suffering just as much as I was suffering. Yeah. During that process. The emotion's the same, right. Rather it's the perspective of the individual who, okay, yeah, Timmy, you're suffering unnecessarily because I'll show you what real suffering is.
Right.
So, and it's easier to relate and understand people, because I'm from the hood. And when I moved to the burbs, I saw a different dichotomy of life. It's a whole different culture. And, obviously at first it was those standard stereotypes and prejudices where these, white kids, whatever, they're right. crying like babies. But when I got to the root of it and I went to the homes and I saw how their lives were literally affecting their mental health, I was like, these guys, are a little loose up there as much as I'm loose up there. So it's like, they didn't go through what I went through, but right. I can see it had an effect on them as much as it had on me. So, but either or, I was born in Puerto Rico in the projects. My mom and dad met, college. I was a oops baby. Right. And, not long after I was born, but I was born, hospital, right to the projects. My mom moved from the States behind my dad's back when around I was 3 years old. She just didn't like the living situation. And, she was one of 15 kids. Wow. So, but the most rebellious one. So you weren't telling my mom anything, right. She could, obviously back in the day you were raised that the guy who knocks you up, that's the guy you're with. You're screwed, marrying and good luck. So she didn't really like the living situation, so she bounced. And we moved to the States. Now, again, one of 15, so there were a lot of aunts and uncles that were living here in the States already. So her natural idea, without giving anybody a heads up, was, start showing up at, some sister's house or whatnot.
Right.
They weren't too keen on having, obviously their younger sister, which the most rebellious one, and with such a huge generation gap that there was no connection there. So she overstayed her welcome. We were homeless here, homeless there. But, it's difficult to, understand when you're a child, how trauma, how fear, how seeing something that your mind can't wrap itself around, how much that affects you physically, biologically. So, one incident I saw mom, we were walking, it's like a summer day, but we were walking to the bodega, which is a grocery store, a little small mom and pop shop. And, some lady, some girl, whatever, it's yelling at her, swearing, I have no idea, but she pulls out a knife and it's me, my mom, and a friend of hers. So her friend comes and kind of, takes me to the side to protect me. And now I see my mom in a confrontation with the lady who's not only being, aggressive, verbally aggressive, violent, she has a knife in her hand. So I'm just scared to death.
Right.
My mom, being as witty and cunning as she is, she's no joke. So she kicked this lady's hand, knife fell off, and pounced on her and started just ground and pound. Boom, 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 boom. And the next thing you know, people are off. That's just like the first incident. My first memory as a child, 3 years old, my first memory was being in a house I didn't remember till I turned 30, started writing my book. I kind of add two and two together, but now I know what the scenario was. I was in my grandmother's house, and I was watching these men at a table, grown-ups, drinking beer, laughing, joking, and then passing around this key and just putting it to their nose and just passing it, having a good old time. And I'm just curious. They can't see me. I'm in the corner. But every now and then I run up and down, act like a little kid, and go back and hide and observe what they're doing. At the end of the day, they leave and leave me there with someone who was watching me, and I naturally go look for this key. I'm like, what is this magical key? So I take the key and I emulate these guys and I put it to my nose. I didn't inhale, but I'm like, well, whatever was going on isn't effective, whatever. So I put the key back and went about my business.
Right.
It's my first memory as a human being. So, some people have their, walks at the, at the blueberry orchard or the apple orchard or, with grandmas. That wasn't mine. Mm-hmm. So that just set the precedent for my life. And, from there, it was violent incident after violent incident, just seeing my mom go through homelessness, packing our bags in the middle of the night because she was kicked out of someone's home and, having her stare outside the window and pray to this or talk to this invisible man that I had no idea who the hell she was talking to, but cry, looking at the sky, just asking for help. And then we moved to the projects in Hartford, Connecticut in the 80s. Mm. This was, crack epidemic.
Right.
This was the 80s where in Connecticut, it was the worst project, the most violent project in the state. So much so that the local state police and police department had to call in the FBI to help because it was insane. Latin Kings against solids. So I saw my first death, I think, at the age of 6. Wow. Gunshots and obviously you hear gunshots, you go in the house, I'm hiding, but curiosity, obviously, I'm looking up and, see this guy walk out of this abandoned, apartment, just crawling, Mm-hmm. And well, that was that. Just again, traumatic incidences where you see death, you see violence, couples arguing and the guy throwing in a 2 of baby pit bulls inside the house of his ex-girlfriend who mauled to death a Shih Tzu and locked her out of the house. And me, and I was a hyperactive, curious little kid, group of people in the projects, this girl screaming bloody murder, I need help. And the windows were barred. So I was a little guy, so, I was probably the only ones that could probably fit in there. So I attempted to fit inside so I can pull the window up and unlock the door. Again, I'm 6 years old, right. But I witnessed these pit bulls making a bloody mess of the Shih Tzu. Couldn't get in, and a memory that never left. My mom had mental health issues. So she, again, the most rebellious lady who didn't really get much love growing up and didn't get trained how to be a parent, became an oops parent with not just any kid, but a hyperactive, smart kid who witnessed so much at a young age that he was a little bit ahead of his time. And, needless to say, it was, a childhood full of abuse, entered the education system in the 80s from a kid, minority in the projects, who went to the school, which was like 2 blocks away from the projects. I got held back in kindergarten, if you can believe that.
Wow.
In kindergarten. So, my motor mouth, my hyperactivity and all that stuff kind of didn't fit well in the system of conformity that they want you to fit into. So I went to first grade, and in first grade, teachers noticed my potential. One of them at least did. So I had the ability to jump to the 3rd grade if I performed and passed these certain tests. I never got to do it because I was too hyperactive and I couldn't stop talking. In a meeting one day, a parent-teacher meeting with my mom, ended up meeting my stepdad, another guy, and it was mom, stepdad, and me in the middle. And I will never forget the teachers, because there was 2 at the first grade, one of them telling my parents that Carlos has the potential to do good things and be a great human being.
Right.
But he also can be one of the worst criminals you've ever met. So that's all my mom needed to hear before, to unleash just years of ass whooping on me.
Yeah.
And, only kid, lonely, grew up secluded from, I had this, my brain, I had this inclination to constantly observe body language and, I guess self-preservation, hypervigilance.
Right.
because you've seen so much. So I studied people. That's all I did was study people. Every single thing they did, said, how they walked, talked, what they dressed, what words came out of their mouth and how their body reacted to these words and what their intentions were, what angles were, just everything about a person. And I use that as a way to just understand my mom, my life, my environment, why I was a good kid. I mean, I was really a good kid. I didn't like fighting. I didn't like violence. I didn't like any of that stuff. You would think after seeing so much I would be cruel, but I was naturally born an empathetic kid. I feel other people's emotions and can relate. So I was thrown into an education system that labeled me the troublemaker, the class clown, the bad kid. Right. And when you start that at an early age, and you have potential, but your hyperactivity and all the negatives overshadow that. After a while, you say, well, then I guess if I'm the bad kid, then I guess I'm the bad kid, man. I mean, I'll be exactly what you want me to be, and that's what I became. And then years of ass whipping continued. Ran away from home when I was in fifth grade, fearing that my mom was going to unleash the worst ass whipping in the world on me. She beat me up pretty bad once, and then the divorce happened. Yep. Well, my sister was born in between when I was 9, but I'll be honest with you. When she met, one of the blessings of my life is she met this man who was really cold to me, didn't show me much love, especially after he was a Dominican guy and really rigid, hard around the edges, and had this model of life that he had to constantly feel the need to be validated and impress others, right. Have a position, have something that people can respect. So when I couldn't be disciplined, he pretty much checked me off and said, whatever, But the benefit of it was they busted their asses. We went from the projects to a apartment complex, to a duplex, to a single family home within so many years. And, I did band, I did chorus, I did karate, I played t-ball. I did a lot of things that kids in the hood never get to experience. Right. But they bought me everything I wanted. Life was good from the outside in. Inside, she just smacked. I mean, it's just abuse, verbal abuse. It was just terrible. And lonely because you didn't have any siblings in there. My sister was a newborn baby, so there was nothing, we could relate to. So years of that created anger, bro, like just rage. Yeah. When you're oppressed for so long by the person that you're told that you have to love and that's supposed to love you and, supposed to care for you and all that stuff. Well, you're obviously a kid. You're trying to make sense of everything. So this person who you can't say a peep to beats you up, smacks you in public, smacks you in front of friends, embarrasses you everywhere you go, makes fun of you, verbally insults you, like, you shouldn't be born, I wish I aborted you, all these horrible things. After trying so many years to get their approval, you become a teenager and you just say, fuck it. Right. What's the point? Yeah. I don't, But what put that into overdrive was a divorce, She lost the image of what a dream, she had this fairy tale life that she worked her ass to create and was very superficial. Yeah. And he, went and found another lady behind her back and, she lost it, man, after the divorce. She just, like, a part of her dreams were crushed and she left them back in Hartford, Connecticut, and we moved to Lowell, Mass, one of the poorest towns in the state. But Lowell, Mass is also where the fighter's from. Lowell has a history, right? So I was a kid from Hartford, Connecticut, teenager, 13-year-old boy, moving single family home, my own room. Everything was dope, a waterbed. And now I'm living into in the closet of my room, dealing with the rage, now depression, anxiety. My brain had molded into something of like a rushing river, man. Just if I needed to think, I had to concentrate to catch thoughts. Only thing that helped was smoking weed. Yeah. So I did that when I was 11, and It's the streets, man. You're in the hood. You're poor. Mom is losing her mind with this dude, that dude, getting drunk, you name it. I'm stuck with my sister when she's out clubbing on weekends. You know, I'm trying to escape. I'm trying to get the hell out. So I went to the streets and met people, you know, thought I was like 21. I was a 14-year-old, 13-year-old puny kid. Then she sent me off to Puerto Rico. I eventually met my dad when I was 11, but she eventually sent me off to him. And, you know, that did it. Like that. Puerto Rico, I love it. Obviously, it's where I'm from. I love my people. I mean, there's just a million and one things why I love him, but it's the real deal, man. It's not, you know, it's like Chicago. It's the real deal. And, you know, I saw death. I saw dudes get shot, killed. I saw him alive, fight for his life, and then die with his eyes open. You know, I saw a lady who had known that went missing, her body, you know, floating down the river, just swollen up. I was shot at, feared for my life. I was a 14-year-old kid thinking I was a boss. You know, obviously I got into hip hop. Hip hop was like my therapy, because the only, you know, growing up in the urban city with your cousins and people being like a hip hop and everything like that, you know, it showed me everything that I wanted to become, because you like that kind of lifestyle. You get respect, you get ladies, you get money, you get fear. Ain't nobody gonna mess with you. Right. You know, the gear's dope. You get to do whatever the hell you want. And that was it. Hip hop was my thing. So I was 14 thinking I was a thug, you know. But once I left Puerto Rico and moved back to Lowell, these kids were playing, you know, checkers. Yeah. And Lowell, they thought they were gangsters. I'm like, you guys know nothing. So then, you know, I went back to the hell that I left with my mom. And then that was it. That was it. It was, you know, something had snapped. I had lost something. And I became extremely desensitized. And it was survival mode. Yep. That was one side. Because I'm like a paradoxical anomaly. I'm a walking contradiction. On the other end, I had Carlos, the kid. The empathetic, nice kid. The kid who was living in his world, in his brain, internally, but externally, you know, you thought he was one thing. Right. And, I worked. I mean, I was trying to do my thing, just trying to create some sort of positivity in my life, you know, over the hell that I was living. But living at home wasn't cutting it. My mom was just losing it, you know. She was just treating me like shit. And then I planned my own suicide at 15. I did that. And then I had a little moment with the big man upstairs that kind of put a stop to that right when I was about to do it. And then homelessness. Man, listen, I could talk your ear off about this forever. So that's like at least my life up to the age of 15.
You talked about survival, I think, right there towards the end of that. And all the things that you witnessed, you know, with your own eyes. As a young child, fragile mind, I mean, that's the stages of development of the brain happen. You know, you obviously learn, you get the word love, and it's supposed to have one meaning, one connotation, yet the example that is set before you of, okay, this now becomes kind of this is what love is, and it's getting your ass kicked, and it's getting verbally abused, and then all the negative vibes that go along with it. And all of a sudden those words start to attach themselves to the word love. You're like, well, love is this, love is this, love is all these things. And, you know, the survival thing and survival tactic, you know, kind of becomes, you got to take care of your own shit. And by, you know, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but by whatever means necessary. Because you obviously at that point, at that age, the travel back and forth from Puerto Rico back up to Lowell, the things that you saw down there, the things that you witnessed in Connecticut, you know, and the support system that clearly was not around you. You know, there was not, you know, that model of what a human should eventually evolve to be. At least even by mediocre standards. Here's what you should grow up and you should be this, and here's how you treat people.
I had that. I mean,
right,
keep in mind, you know, TV, right?
Yeah,
I used to stay up late at night and watch. I watched Roseanne I watched The Cosby Show. I watched, Married with Children. I watched, Growing Pains, Full House. I had an understanding what a functioning, families have problems, but at the end, right, it all works out.
Yeah, half hour. We solve all that stuff in a half hour.
That's it.
Yep.
It's all solved, Becky messed up, but Roseanne, washed it up, and it's just the way it was. Yeah. And I had other people who felt bad for me, like an aunt who saw it, but people were just too afraid to step up because my mom was no joke.
Right.
And, when the person that, when you have to protect yourself from your own mother, the person that you shouldn't even think about, I mean, you can't even trust that person.
Right.
Who are you going to trust? Who can't screw you up? Who can't mess with you? That's where hip hop came into the business, because ain't nobody going to mess with me. So, yeah, anyways, yeah, I guess that's what I'd say.
No, I mean, to watch those kind of shows, and I recall, I think I recall that Becky episode, as a matter of fact.
Right.
We had that. And that was, I was a single parent family, nothing compared to your story, but you did have, I think, this, especially in that time frame, in that 80s into early 90s, like a lot of the sitcom stuff, a lot of things that were on TV really portrayed the white picket fence kind of life. Maybe Married with Children may be a little different, but still, you still had this conduit in a family home, and it was all figured out in that 22 minutes of airtime that they had, and there was the 1.5 kids, and there was here's the vacation episode, and dad goes to work or mom stays, and you kind of paint that as, okay, so that's what it's supposed to be like. That's what life is. When I get to a certain age, it may not be like this for me now, but clearly if it's on television, this must be where I need to place my trajectory in life to end up with this box that I live in. And when something comes up, we figure it out, we solve the problem, we move on.
Yeah.
And, it was clearly, I think we both realized that is not necessarily the case. It does not really work out like that in reality. And I think, television and I think the things that kids interpret today have evolved more to really show some more of the realities of life. And that could be a good, that's another argument. That could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. But, when you have such harsh conditions to live with and constant adjustment to live with, and obviously access to, we get into the hip hop world or that lifestyle or even what it takes to get there or what is perceived that it takes to get there.
Yeah.
That can lead you into some bad roads where not everybody who wants to live that lifestyle and tries to start off on the streets doing it gets to the Biggie Pac level,
Yeah.
Biggie being a good example of that is he was, a dealer and then ended up obviously in the height of his career as perhaps one of the greatest MCs of all time. But here's and I don't mean to interrupt, but no,
it's kind of one of these things that it's like we all remember who we were as kids. We all know the geeky stuff we like, the cartoons, the scholastic books and all. We remember that. We know that a part of us. But then you get older, right? And you need to identify we need to create an identity. You want to find approval and acceptance by some group. And ultimately, because of the environment condition that you're in, the culture does create, it forces you to follow this model, right? So, but we never lose that. If you want to be a gangster, you start early, I'll guarantee you'll become a gangster. There's no doubt. You pursue it, you will be it. But don't play yourself, because even the Hitler, Mussolini, the worst person, human being in the world, has a good side. Everybody does.
Right.
Everybody does. You pay attention to one or the other, and you give the other one, one or the other a bigger voice. But even Biggie, one of my favorite lyrics, he says, "I know what it's like to wake up fucked up. Pockets broke as hell, another rock to sell. People look at you like user, selling drugs to all the users, mad Buddha abuser. But they don't know about the stress-filled day. Baby on the way, mad bills to pay. That's why I drink Tanqueray, so I can reminisce and wish I wasn't living so devilish. I mean, you can't put it any simpler than that. What are you gonna do? What's your alternative? Being kind in the hood is weakness, man. You can't be nice. You can't be all positive and stuff. You're gonna get eaten up by the sharks if you want to live in the streets. So it will produce a gangster if that's what you're going for. Very, very quick and very easy. You inject the constant music, the culture, being the words, the lyrics in your brain with those, harmonic, melodic beats just subduing you. Smoke a little bit of weed, drink a little bit of liquor. That's it. It's a wrap.
Yeah.
You're doing anything,
Yeah, you fall into that vision of what it's like. You're and for you, I mean, you're a walk outside of your front door, for, suburban white kid, listening to that music, it was like the vision was of just literally just the ambiance of it with like no understanding of what
the romanticism.
Yeah. It was the things you mentioned, the cars, the girls, a lot of girls, this lifestyle of like glam. And, I think in that era, especially of hip hop, it was, all of a sudden it went from, saggy pants to 3-piece suits to kind of this, GQ fresh look. And it was absolutely 100% romanticized, but you were like, you walk outside your door and that's where it's real. I mean, that's where it's legit. That's where the shit's happening that, these guys are talking about. And, you are, what I'm trying to get into is where did it come as you're in this kind of teenage, obviously it's a very important age and what direction you're going to take your life. If you, live by the standard model of society today, that's the time when they start talking about where you're going to go to college or what are you going to do next? What's your plan after this? Like, I don't know. I was glad I woke up today, on time and made it to school, but when you're in that environment and that outside influence is always there, the music is obviously a part of that, and you can open your door and again look out and okay, here it is, legit. Where do you start to make steps in the wrong direction that leads you into some bad spots for you in life as an individual, making bad choices?
There's a thing called learned helplessness. Learned helplessness, and it's, to paraphrase, it's pretty much the belief that, obviously things are not going to get better.
Right.
And that no matter how much you try, you succumb to the failures of not being able to succeed. So therefore, you're helpless to change anything about it. That's the hood. That's the entire hood. I mean, a big part of it. So you have that mentality across everybody with a mean mug. Listen, they could be the softest person inside. Wouldn't harm a fly. But when they step out that door, the mean mug, the gear, the swag, the limp and all that, that's their way to repel other people. So when I left Puerto Rico and came back, mind you, I grew up reading body language, understanding people. So I kind of like, I was always 3 steps ahead of other people, especially those that were my age,
right.
Or my generation. So I knew I wasn't like a killer. I wasn't like, I still felt some kind of way about doing a lot of bad stuff.
Right.
I never robbed people. I never, went and robbed a store, anything like that. Just that wasn't my swag. I had this level of integrity inside of me, this pride that I was like, what? I'm never going to stoop this low. But, anger kicks in, and home was a nightmare. So I couldn't spend my time inside of my house in privacy. There wasn't any. School was an obligation because I had to go to school, because if not, they get the truant officers on me. I was suspended. That was a vacation for me. The streets, I was hustling, but you got your group of friends, and over time, people separate. Your friend ends up joining a gang. That's your boy. What's my boy? What's this all about? They invite you to join a gang. And I was never the gang type. I was like, man, I always been alone. I don't need anybody to defend me.
Right.
But then you realize the law of averages, right? I mean, it's like you're kind of outnumbered here. Mm-hmm. And if you want to survive, then you kind of got to do something, because respect is what you're looking for. And if you're going to earn it, it's easier to earn it with a group of people than by yourself. Mm-hmm. Because if shit goes down, you're defending yourself, and that's it. And no one else is going to have your back. So, after growing up in the education system, I did not respect authority figures whatsoever. Right. Authority figures were a sign of oppression. They were trying to hold me down and tell me what to do and contain myself and all this nonsense. So, that got me into a lot of trouble with the cops, getting arrested, stealing a stolen car, minor possession of alcohol, you name it. But what really ended up defining my mentality and my pursuit of this lifestyle was that potential that the teacher said I had in first grade. Mm-hmm. But throughout the education system it was mentioned, but nobody did anything to help it, to improve it, to guide it, to steer it, right. Nothing. They're just like, well, you figure it out. If you don't figure it out, then we'll just pass you and you figure it out the next grade. Right. You're someone else's problem. That became useful for the OGs, mm-hmm. for the dudes that saw something in this little dude. He's like, this guy, he's smarter than all these other, peewees here. He could offer something. Right. He has a different insight, different perspective. His brain just works differently. So I was under their wing. They taught me this. They showed me that. My first gun was by an OG. My first pound of weed was by an OG. My first kilo seed was by an OG. Mm. I rode around with these guys, and they were the Don Juan DeMarcos. There was nobody that was messing with them. Right. Nobody. Mm-hmm. So they can pull up anywhere, do anything, say anything, be anything, and you had to deal with it. So that cemented the belief in me from first grade that I had something. I had some potential. There was something inside of me. Everyone noticed whether it was good or bad. But shitty mom, shitty environment, school sucks because it wasn't doing anything for me. I ended up being homeless. Right. Homeless, roaming the streets. So I became a product in the environment, in externally projecting something I wasn't, while internally feeling so helpless to do anything about it, because there was no progress whatsoever. Very little positivity was misconstrued as getting laid, mm-hmm. Finding another dime bag to smoke and blaze with your boys, and try to kill time. You're bored, and boredom is the worst thing for a human being to experience, because when you're bored, that's when anything goes. Right. You pretty much do anything. So that was life. That was the person that I was by the time my life changed and I moved from the hood to the burbs. Mm-hmm. And that was around 16 years old.
You know what, a lot of people will hear this podcast, and there would be, I was trying to keep track, but I think about 7 or 8, that's where it's at its worst. No, there it is. No, that's gotta be it. Right there, that one. It'd be a combination of all of them. So there's all of these, downs, step down, have a step up, another step down. And so you kind of go through this. It doesn't feel like at this juncture of our conversation, like that's pretty damn, and I shouldn't say anybody. Many people would say, yeah, that was my rock bottom. When I hit homelessness, when I saw, when I witnessed crawling through steel, bars on a window, and saw these 2 dogs tearing apart this other dog, and I witnessed, or the first dead body you saw, or, even the jump back and forth, even having to go from, Connecticut to, Massachusetts, back to Puerto Rico. I mean, those levels of just change in a youth environment. I mean, you move from small city to small city, or small city to big city, and their kids are like, oh, this is tragic. My friends are back there, and you're like, well, the only way you communicate with them these days is on your tablet anyway, so what does it make a difference if you actually see them in person? But all of the the bad things that happen, environmental things, a failing school system, the promise of this potential and nobody accelerating it or even giving you the avenue, hey, I think you have something special. Cool. What do you think it is? I don't know. And then it just, that lingers, that first grade year just lingers in your mind, and it's always something there, which probably turned out, and we'll get to, present day eventually, but that's that one thing that you're like, that one phrase, that one person, that said that one thing, and it carried you through all of these rock bottoms. Mm-hmm. Like I said, 6 or 7 so far.
Yeah.
But where do you classify when for you, as you recollect and look back, from your standpoint now, and we'll get to all the amazing things that you've done in the more recent, as you've gotten through all this. But for you looking back, and you say, that was it. That was the moment where I was like, it's either, almost that fight or flight. Like I'm either done. Mm-hmm. This is the end of the story, or I'm either going to go back to wherever I was at rock bottom and maintain down there, or find another rock bottom below that somehow, some way, or I'm going to turn my shit around, and you're going to watch this phoenix rise from, the ashes of all of these rock bottoms combined. For you looking back, where is that moment where you're like, that was when the change had to happen. That's when I had to put my life in perspective and get up, dust myself off, and move forward in a more progressive manner.
You probably will expect this, but it happened twice. Mm. The first time it took place, I was committed. I followed through, and then I experienced something that rocked my world and regressed me, years. But Les Brown has a saying. He says, there are winners, there are losers, and there are people who just don't know how to win. Mm-hmm. I grew up, like my psychiatrist told me, over a decade ago when I first saw one, my brain was like a pot, and it was being molded by the potter. Mm-hmm. And to me, I became a pot. I was a pot that could hold water. But from the outside in, this pot was just disformed. I mean, yeah, it was a pot that could hold water, but it was the ugliest pot in the world. Right. But I had no idea I was a pot. My purpose was being served. I had no idea what getting my shit together looked like. I had no idea what living a good life. Yes, I knew the concept of it, but I had no idea how to initiate it. I had no idea what the hell to do. So there was an incident in junior high, in high school when I was a freshman, that kind of introduced me to another world, I guess the Caucasian world, but a different world. It happened in Lowell. Mm-hmm. I was, shit sucked naturally at home and in the streets. So school, I wanted to make it easy as possible. So there was a process where you could literally demote yourself. It was mainstream, higher classes, and then you go yourself lower, like one step above special ed. Mm-hmm. So I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. I mean, I don't need to fail with these expectations. I might as well just pass fairly easy. Mm-hmm. But by doing that, I was, the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. So I was just chilling, man.
Yeah.
But it didn't go unnoticed. Apparently behind my back, the 4 teachers, math, science, English, and history, had planned to do something about it and asked me to go to the room on a Friday here. I thought I did something. I'm like, I don't know what I did wrong. I'm sure it was something. So whatever, I'll just deal with it. And then they tell me that there's a lot of potential in me. They see something, and they think I could compete with the honor roll quiz. And I'm like, you're talking to the wrong dude, man. You don't understand. I'm living with some pregnant chick in her house, okay, because I'm homeless, okay? You have no idea. Right. Not even my baby. I mean, my mom, listen, you're talking to the wrong dude. I can't do this. And they're like, no, we understand you're living. We understand how life isn't easy for you. So we'll obviously give you, some leeway, and and work with you and whatnot. But you start on Monday. I'm like, now honor roll kids. These are the kids that are, with the bug out bags. You know what I'm saying? With the 80-pound bags in the back, just getting from one class to the other, dude. These were not the kids I have, whatever, right? So I go in there, and I got some shade at first because it's like these kids bust their ass to get to where they're at.
Right.
Here comes this kid from the hood, the only Puerto Rican kid in that class, who was hood. And I'm like talking about, hey, I'm your new peer now, and let's get the show on the road. I got a lot of charm, obviously I know how to work with people. One of the reasons I'm alive this day is my ability to adapt to the environments that I'm put in, just because I had to just to survive. So being able, having read body language and know people so well, I just knew how to adapt. So I kind of befriended them, and it was mad chill. And I was introduced to a world, man, that my boys in the hood had no idea even existed. And we were talking about these kids come, they live in a different town, where the money's at, where we would go to steal bikes from. So that's what's the place.
Yeah.
So, and now I'm like their friend, and they're inviting me to keg parties and high school football games in different towns. And these white girls are telling me about the drunkenness, and the white boys are telling me how crazy these white girls get. And I'm just like, you guys do so many drugs and nobody knows about it. It's like, and you live in this dope ass house and you live a good life. I can barely smoke weed in peace in public, or, be with my boys without getting harassed by the cops, thrown against the fence and checked.
Right.
This is crazy. So, but that broke me in. That exposed me to something that at one point, like watching the movie American Pie, you would fantasize about. You're like, dude, I would love to be with these crazy white boys and do these crazy things and, do what they do. And now I'm being exposed to this. This is real. Then I got sent. We went to, my mom had to go to a homeless shelter in Gloucester, Mass. And this was right when I was entering sophomore year. And 16-year-old kid, seeing a glimmer of hope in honor roll classes, gets shoved from his environment, thrown into a foreign world, with now predominantly Caucasian world of people. We're talking about Abercrombie and Fitch, that whole early 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
We all know about it. NSYNC,
Gerbos, man. Rocking some Gerbos.
It's fucking great. The Jenko pants.
Oh,
and
yes.
Who can remember those, right? You can't forget that. So I'm a hood kid, mind you. I was hustling, right? So not when I was there, but before that. So I got gold rings. I got gold chains. I'm a skinny 122-pound kid wearing size 38 pants. I'm just, whatever. So I go into the school. They know my situation. The staff does. They work with me. They give me a lot of good advice. And I spent my time there, but I had to hide myself. I couldn't, I didn't want to tell them I was homeless. I didn't want that. Nobody had to know, because I didn't need that exposure. I didn't need to deal with that on top of everything else. So when I left, I wanted to kind of come out and say, here's the deal. The kid you were cool with, the kid that you hung out with, the kid that had a different period, Carlos, right? He was homeless, man. He was homeless.
Right.
He was homeless, and not everybody that you may run into that looks a certain way actually is living fine. People are going through real shit, and this is what homelessness looks like. It's not a guy on the street at a bum. Happens all the time. But in that shelter, I was given a book, like a journal, where I could write all my thoughts, man. And when I started writing that thing as a 16-year-old kid living in a shelter by myself in a room, I had torn my ACL too. So I didn't realize how dark, how screwed up I was up there. I was writing hate. So that kind of introduced me to self-awareness, like, holy shit, But my letter got picked up by the local newspaper. And they wanted to write an article about me, my family, and put my letter in the newspaper. So that took place, And then after I moved, they published it. But where I moved to was small, mostly Caucasian town, unlike Gloucester, Mass, which very few minorities, very close-minded. This is our town. This is how we do things here.
Right.
And, you look like everything our parents told us to watch out for. So don't come with, again, I'm torn ACL. Instead of wearing crutches, with my swag, I got a cane instead. And kid walking in with jewelry, baggy pants, boom, with a cane. Okay, now this is Big Daddy Cane. I'm like a pimp now.
Yeah.
As a 16-year-old kid in a suburban white school. I mean, these kids were not expecting this shit.
No.
So I'm at lunch, chilling, minding my business, and this kid comes up. It's this noise. This person behind me says, I look around, just checking the scene out. I hear, what the fuck are you looking at? My reaction is clearly he can't be talking to me because I wasn't looking at him. I mean, I'm minding my business, so he's not talking to me. Where I'm from, you say that to somebody, obviously it's on, right? So, so I'm like, I ignored it. I looked just to make sure. I'm like, okay, you're not talking to me, cool. Yeah, I'm fucking talking to you. What the fuck are you looking at? I turn around, I'm like, like Al Pacino, like, you talking to me?
Yeah.
You talk, it's like, yeah, I'm talking to you. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I laughed, I chuckled a little bit, and then boom, clocked him. Now, mind you, this is in lunchroom, where you went to, how schools are in the suburbs. Click, the seniors sit here, the gothic kids are there, the nerds are there. Everybody has their own little clique, and then you got the melting pot in the middle where people just shoot the shit. But fights don't go down, not in school. That they go out, outside somewhere, and that's few and far in between. So I did that, and the whole fucking place erupted. Now, mind you, at this point, I got a bad knee. I just came out of surgery as of like a month or so. So I'm protecting this knee, and I'm protecting myself against this, racist little white boy here, who I don't even know, and God knows who else is gonna come and have his back.
Right.
So I'm seeing Jason. I'm red. Next thing you know, I got the gym teacher throwing me and, taking me off, whatever. I got suspended. That set the tone. From there on out, I heard words like spick, porch monkey, wetback, things that we don't say that shit in the hood. We don't even know what the hell that means. So I'm hearing these words in the hallway, and people I knew were like, "Does that piss you off? What the hell, dude?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" When he said this and this, I'm like, dude, I don't know what the fuck that means. To me, it doesn't mean shit. So I don't have no fucking. Right. They're like, well, that means this, and I'm like, what? I'm like, oh shit. So here we go. Teachers heard it. Everybody heard it. Nobody gave a fuck. The principal literally thought, because the police department had my record, they labeled me as a drug dealing, minority. Shit, I couldn't even speak Spanish in ROTC class because the drill instructor did not want me to hear, to talk Spanish. I'm like, okay, so whatever. That's my reality.
Right.
That little bit of hope that I had, gone, dude. Angry Carlos is back to attack. And now it's really literally me against everybody. And I wasn't back. And I'm like, okay, you might as well kill me at this point because you're really not going to, I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
So anyways, that's what was my lifestyle. And then I got arrested 1,000,001 times. They wanted to get me out of that town.
Right.
And in jail. So I hit an age, 18, 19, I think. I was over it, man. I was over it. I had made friends. I had lived in that culture, in that environment. I've been in their homes. I met their families. I felt the racism. I felt the prejudice. I felt the labeling. I experienced all that. I knew what that was. But I also experienced the kindness. I experienced the openness. I experienced the advice, the sincerity, I had friends. It wasn't like I didn't have friends. I had friends. And, I said it. I had an ex-girlfriend. I mean, I was just I was homeless again and again. I was in and out of jail. I got into a high-speed car chase with I became a Latin King. So a high-speed car chase with my Latin King boys in Rhode Island with the cops. Shootout. Like movie shit. Wow. Trying to derail vehicles in a stolen vehicle that we stole from a different state. And I got caught. I got the ever-living life beaten out of me by the Rhode Island Police and the Massachusetts State Police Department. Lucky I wasn't shot because they were talking about doing it if Captain didn't show up or Chief, whoever the hell he was. I had gone through a lot, man. I had gone through a lot, and you know, I had banged some girls and stuff, and I had a relationship, but I just wanted, you know, believe it or not, this is going to sound crazy, but you ever seen the movie Vanilla Sky?
Tom Cruise?
Yeah. Penelope Cruz.
Yep.
One of my top 5, and it's weird, but because you see this individual privileged, given every fucking thing he wanted. Dad owned a magazine company. Just wasting it, you know, just banging every girl that his best friend really likes. You know, just abusing the life that he's been given. And then you run into the other scene where he's wearing this mask and stuff. But the long end of it is I was brought through a journey of what your choices can lead to, how consequences directly affect your life. And it brought me through that journey. And then at the end, as we realized, you know, he was put into the state life extension where he was cryo frozen, and then he woke up, 100 and so years later. But everybody that the movie, as you remember, the whole movie was fake. He was living inside of a virtually, you know, a virtual reality, a dream that was created during his cryo freeze. And all that didn't happen. So as the glitches started happening, he woke up out of it. And then the person that he met, Penelope Cruz, that he was in love with, had died. She had kids. His whole world was over. But the speech that the guy gave at the end was about consequences. He says, David, these are the consequences of your choices. Now you have a decision to make. You go this way. You can stay in your state. We can re-put you in cryo freeze and you can go on continuing your life extension. Or you can jump off of this building, which is your biggest fear, heights, and enter the world. And by now they can fix your face and do all this stuff. And it just, everything kind of culminates and and I realized, I said, fucking consequences.
Right. Yeah.
Consequence. I mean, I did this shit to myself. Dropped out of high school as a sophomore. I got my GED. And then I met a girl, a white girl, country, you know, girl from the burbs. Tomboy. We were like oil and vinegar, you know, we were not mixing, but it worked out. But she and the group of friends that I was with, I analyzed them like you couldn't believe, because I was determined to know how to be normal, or what normal was. I just needed to work and live and be a well-functioned human in society without self-destructing constantly. So I, you know, changed a lot, right? Changed a lot. Got a career. The career I excelled at. I had a mentor, which was the owner. And, you know, long story short, heartbreak. We broke up. And I ran into this, you know, sounds silly now, but I saw something back in MySpace days where I was like, I'm single. Somebody said, go on MySpace. I'll go to the MySpace account. Who's the first person I look up? My ex-girlfriend. Right. So I see a picture here on MySpace, and I lost it, bro. I was 24, 5. I don't know. It was like, maybe 23, 24, but I lost it. Right. I couldn't work. I drank my ass off. I drank my pain away. And needless to say, everything that happened in between was just a process of trying to skirt responsibility, skirt being accountable for my actions, try to justify everything I was doing in order to make myself feel better, and completely ignore the fact that my life was collapsing before me. But it wasn't my fault. It's not. She did this to me. He did that to me. They, you know, put in the blame. Yep. And ultimately, I joined a rugby team and all that stuff, but I got into an incident one night, stabbed the guy, saw myself in jail, Worcester County Correctional, woke up after classification and, you know, realized this at 25, 24, this was where my life had gotten. You know, when you have that, as we all know, the pressure of being an adult requires you to sustain the infrastructure of the lifestyle that allows you to be an adult. Bills, cars, family, whatever it is, that's your responsibility. Okay? Some people put on way too much on their plate. Some people are still living for someone else's life, the lives of their moms or dads or whatever, but they're not living their life. So they're living in a perpetual state of misery because they're not doing anything for themselves. Whatever the situation is, that's your life. And you're obligated to wake up every single day and live it. The alternative, the fear of the alternative, is why people don't take risk, is why people just don't break themselves away from the chains. Jail took that all away from me.
Right.
I didn't have anything to worry about no more. No bills, no friends, no job, no nothing. As crazy ironic as that was, that freedom, the freedom while I'm incarcerated, liberated me. But not just liberated me, it allowed me to reflect without needing to wake up with the stress. I used to be a bill collector. I mean, I had to wake up every fucking day and hear somebody say, "You mother effer, you son of..." People literally, you have to become to be a bill collector, you have to deconstruct your understanding of what humans are. Just break you down to build you back up, because people will lie to you. They will deceive you. They will tell you the worst stories that you couldn't even imagine to avoid paying that damn bill.
Right. Yeah.
They've already justified why they're not going to pay it, why they don't have to pay it. Now it's just a matter of convincing your ass and getting you off their back. Well, it took me, a little bit to get through that. But every day waking up in such a negative, toxic environment with this brain, with the life I had outside of home, being somebody that I wasn't, because when I met her, I felt like I had to, be this kind of Carlos to live this life, because this is the life that Carlos is supposed to be living. So I had to be this I had to be white Carlos. I had to be quiet Carlos. I had to be church Carlos. I had to be this Carlos. I had to be some other Carlos.
Right.
So it worked for a little bit, but you're not being yourself. So then I had a little talk with the big man upstairs, kind of like an epiphany. I had questions that I hadn't ever asked, and I received answers that I had never, ever received. It's almost like every advice, everything that I've been told, everything that happened in my entire life, just boom, was resolved that one night. But, reality was I was an adult, and I wasn't going to be in jail forever, and I had to come out. But when I did come out, when that took place, I was homeless again, because my landlord wasn't going to keep it just wasn't going to happen. My job wasn't there. Nothing was there. But I had experienced a lot before that. And, like a year before, no, actually, after getting out, I had a different perspective. I had this humility. I had this peace, this tranquility. I had the acceptance that I was who I was. I can't change my past. I can't change my mother. I can't do nothing about what the hell happened before me. It's just what it was. But I can do something now.
Right.
I was given another chance, and swallowing my pride was very well. In a crazy way, it was very easy, because I've been dealing with being humiliated by my mom since I was a kid, and shutting my mouth, and having to adapt and just be quiet and get used to my environment. So living on a couch, dealing with all this stuff, it was demoralizing. But I was looking at any opportunity that I could create for myself through a different focus lens. So I was now able to make better decisions. And during that year, I received, when you have, as you probably experienced in your life, when you change your perspectives and your mind is now emitting a different energy, a different frequency to the world, you now tune yourself to that frequency. So the world, whatever's tuned to that frequency will now come to you. Yep. And I was receiving that over and over again. And I was like, it was inundated by it. And I was like, holy shit, like I could be a good person. I could let out all the good things about me that I was, withholding and keeping inside for all these years and afraid, because I had to be this, I had to be that. I didn't want to be judged. I could be whoever the hell I want to be. Right. And then, year after year, things change and life turned completely around.
That is, do you want to talk about overcoming and, excuse me, listening to that story and having that, your conversation with the man upstairs, a moment of clarity, the letting go of the past. I run into and have harbored it myself for, my wife used to say, you got to let go of these things. My childhood was not, I can't even, not even, we're on a different playing field, but I think
it's all good, man.
But you mentioned it's the same, Timmy can have the same kind of
absolutely, bro.
mental things going on. So I had,
you know the feeling.
Yeah. Parental issues, let's call them, and held a lot of resentment because, I could have gone and done this had this been this way. If my mom would have been this way, if my father would have been this way, if the situation, if we hadn't moved, I went to 3 high schools in 4 years. I know but having to adjust and make new friends. And then you're like, but I went on and I found what I considered to myself my comfort zone. I had my career. I started in radio right out of high school, age 19, and turned it into 20 years and what would have been a lifelong career. That was like one of those specialty gigs. Like, oh, wow, that's really cool. Like I'm like, yeah. The first year was like, yeah, that's right. I'm a bad motherfucker over here. I get to talk. Yeah. I get to talk to people. And
the prestige of the title.
Oh man, I walk out my, $600 every 2-week paycheck, and I'm just fucking rolling in it. But I always held on to that kind of angst and resentment because of the past, because of the situations I was put in. Ultimately, the decisions that I made, but really, and I felt a lot of that in that moment of clarity you had, is it was never my fault. I was there to blame. I'm here because of them. This didn't work out for me, and it's their fault. I didn't get this raise, and it's not something that for me was like very like prevalent. It would come out once in a while. I think during darker moments when you're like, God, I could have been in we could have had a nicer house, or we could have been living somewhere where it doesn't get fucking 36 below zero in February and you can't do anything. So those kind of moments would come up and I'm like, it's because of this. And then finally one day when I had a similar moment when I was just like that's not going to change anything. Like I can sit here and bitch and complain about I didn't get this and this didn't work out and I, made these bad choices and I ended up in jail for, a while from some of my bad choices in my 20s. I'm like, where the fuck is that getting us? Where at this point with a wife and a child, where are we going? How is this making things?
And you had that pressure. That's
right.
That's something, bro.
So to be able to, and you see people, and I'm sure you who goes out and now has turned that corner in such a major way to now you're speaking to people about this and people of all ages and from middle schools into colleges and on the web and on worldwide media of just to masses of people about you have to encounter these people that are challenged every day because of the past and how it was and just when you let it go and you are a number one prime shining star example of this, when you let that go and you start, like you said, you may have to live on a couch. You may have to do things that suck. A lot of things I do suck. But the reason that you get through those, you get into that being comfortable, being uncomfortable because you want something better. 100% on board with that, aligning your frequency. For the longest time, I thought that was bullshit. Like my frequencies, I want to be a millionaire. I say it every day. I put it on a post-it note somewhere, but it doesn't. If you don't gravitate yourself towards that and move yourself in that direction, and find ways to work for it, and you just sit there and hope that it's going to happen. Well, hope and putting yourself on the same frequency are two completely different things.
Exactly.
But the fact that you were able to take that and make this huge life turn at what I assume was one of the 2 rock bottoms, which total is about 13. I think we got to 13 rock bottoms, but the one where it flipped, it flipped and things changed and everything in the past became what it was. And it became about, okay, now it's time to move forward.
Yeah.
It is just, it's an inspiring story of the obstacles that are in front of people that we put in front of ourselves, that we blame others for being in front of us. If you can get in your head and start to control it a little bit, like the mind is a fucking wild place, man. It is amazing when you get in there and you're like, wow, I'm in control of that floating 8-pound object in my head. This whole time I thought it was just controlling what I was doing, and you start to say, well, no, I'm gonna go. Like if I tell my brain to tell my body to go this direction, my body will go that direction because my brain just told it to go that direction. We get so strung up on the blocks, on the roadblocks that are in front of us, and we go, oh shit, no, can't. That's uncomfortable. It's risky. It'd be risky to make this decision, start your own business, move to a new city, take that job offer, stand up in front of the board, make a presentation. People get like paralyzed.
Absolutely.
Because of that risk and because it's not even the fact of being in it, the thought of being in a situation that's uncomfortable and going, I don't want to be in that because they're not even in that. They're not even there. They're not even standing up in front of the board of directors saying, here's what we're going to do. They're just thinking about how it would feel. But
now, add the action to it or add the attempt to it, and then you have the social pressure of people saying, are you crazy? I mean, have you lost your mind? Listen, you're going to destroy this. You're going to ruin that. You've worked so long. And then you're like, oh, no. I mean, that, the social embarrassment, social isolation with the emotional fear and insecurity and doubts, worries, you name it, will paralyze paralyzes 95% of human beings. Yeah. Period.
It's a crazy thing to think about, but I think I have, we've been in that chair. We've sat in that chair paralyzed by something and not realizing if you go through it, if you dig down, if you have to practice, if you have to stand in front of a mirror and shout at yourself, you go into my bathroom and it's literally, there's fucking Post-it. It looks like I've framed my mirror, which makes it a real pain in the ass to clean when my wife yells at me to clean the bathroom mirror. But there's just Post-it notes of things that I want to remind myself of. It's all about reading it and remembering exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why do I get up so early and work out? It's not because I want a fucking 6-pack abs. It's not. It's because I feel better when I do it. It sucks. I've said this millions of times in this podcast. I run and running sucks.
Yes.
I'm launching a new business, and the strains and pressures of doing that and doing something that's I've never done before in my life. Trying to learn shit, making phone calls and talking to people and like dealing with lawyers and accountants. And I'm like, but if you do it, and I look at those things and I say, that's why we're fucking doing it.
Yeah.
I need to get, the words I have, and the books I've read. I know you mentioned several people in this podcast already that I constantly go to as a motivational resource. I've added you to that repertoire. You're in the book now. You're on on the pages. But you just find those little things, those little itty bitty quotes or phrases that a year ago I thought were bullshit, and now I'm like, no, dude, that's real, because doing all these things have put me on that frequency, like you mentioned. Yeah. That strangely enough, man, I have this idea, and I wrote it down. This book has become my Bible. I write everything down. That's awesome. And I had this idea, and it turned into like meeting with somebody, having a podcast with somebody on a completely different topic, and just sporadically this thing got brought up, and it was like, I can get you from A to B. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. There's no way. And then it was that pressure of like, oh man, like I didn't think this was ever going to go from A to B. It was just going to be at A, and I was going to hope, and now A to B. Okay, now we're at B. All right, now I have to do these 12. Now I'm at C. Like, holy shit. Like, just because you've put that energy out there. Yeah. And, I want to hear your continuation of your story from having that epiphany, that moment, that conversation, that change, the rock bottom to Phoenix Rising, where you went from that position, being incarcerated, to, you got a book coming out in 2020, which I want to talk about. telling these stories in depth, getting more in depth with some of the things that we've talked about. You're speaking to people, you're motivating people, you're energizing people, you're a monster on social media, just getting in people's claw and just being like, dude, what types of challenges, from where you were, but you just kept on going through them. Tell me about kind of the progress from incarceration. Obviously you got through that.
Yeah.
You started to go through those struggles and you just kept on moving forward. Tell me about the path and journey to where you sit now.
A lot of people think that, like you said, running. Yeah. I run 3 times a week. And as you know, I hate it. Yeah. I literally, the minute I start running, when I push that number 6, my brain is fighting me and saying,
100%.
Stop it, dude, stop it. You just don't, it's going to suck. Don't, And then it's that resiliency, that ability to be able to push yourself to a point that your brain is negative off the rip. It's only there to keep you alive, to help you survive. It doesn't care how good you feel. It doesn't care about any of that. It just wants, okay, you're hurting, you're straining. I feel pain. I sense pain. Get the hell off now. Chill out. So that's the brain. That's how it works. Even though I experienced all that stuff growing up, and confronted my demons and was exposed to such, to the fight or flight feeling since I was a child, I knew what taking risks felt like. I knew what all these sensations felt like, the good and the bad. But when I left prison or jail, whatever county, I had the chance. There was a reset button. Everything was over. I had a fresh start, new mentality, new perspective. But life was still waiting for me to live it. So I had a lot more shit to deal with, a lot more challenges. I mean, I moved to Florida, you name it. But because I had a different perspective, I had different friends. I've always reflected. I've always been a creature of contemplation, of reflection, constant self-analysis, which causes self-confliction because the way that, you're good cop, bad cop, the devil and the angel, both on each shoulder, and one's pulling you this way, one's pulling you the other. And the more bad you do, the less, the quieter the good voice gets. So now that bad voice was gone. Now the good voice was louder with a different perspective. So everything changed in a positive way. But that goddamn son of a bitch resistance was there. And every time I try to go forward, it just pushed me back. But I wasn't inside. I no longer had that anger. I no longer had that why me, that woe was me bullshit. I let that go. So it was like I've always done in life, a strategy, right? Here's the goal. Here's where I want to get to. Here's what I want to have. Now with a better perspective, I can get it. But how am I going to get there? And plan A, even though it's plan A, it might not work. So what would be plan B and then plan C? How could I still get to the same place if shit hits the fan here? So then you attempt that. I came out as a felon. A kid, a smart dude, potential, could blend in with the CEO or a homeless guy, have conversations with both, no problem. Couldn't get a job at CVS. Couldn't get a job at Dunkin' Donuts. The only place I could apply to was in the mailroom of a corporation where no one saw me, with immigrants, people who weren't from this country, people who could barely speak English, or crackheads or meth addicts or heroin addicts. These were the people that I had to be around. So I'm like, damn, this sucks, dude. Shit changed. And when not to give you too much info, but because it's in the book, of course, I got sent to Wisconsin for work. And when I came to Wisconsin, which was end of October 2009, I was an East Coast boy. you know anything about the East Coast, it's fast paced, as quick as a tick in a New York minute. So you either in it or you're in the way. So which one are you? Because, get the hell out. I don't know you. You don't know me. So we have no reason to talk. If you talk to me, what the fuck do you want? And why the fuck are you talking to me? That was the mentality. You've all seen the movie The Town. You've all seen, you've seen plenty of East Coast movies. Their interpretation is pretty dead on. I mean, you got to be a little rough, You talk shit, it's going down, whatever. So that was it. Stress. Everybody's angry. Everybody's pissed. Everybody's got a chip on their shoulder. Everybody's a tough guy. Every woman, it's just all the time, especially in the hood or in the environment, in these, these environments. So I came to Wisconsin, and fucking people were like, I didn't have a car, obviously, because I wasn't supposed to stay here for too long. I got sent here for an acquisition, and to see if the acquisition was profitable. And if it was profitable, then there'd be a merger. And if the merger took place, I would be the division manager of the Wisconsin division, right. For this company. So I got, I was staying with the guy of the owner of the company we were buying in his basement, which was an apartment. And we're driving to work every damn day, and people are just waving at us from the other lane. I'm like, do you know the guy? He's like, no. I'm like, well, what's the deal then? Why the hell's he waving? He's just waving. I'm like, he's waving to wave because he's just being nice. He's just waving. And he's like, yeah, people do that around here. I said, okay. Then I go to the store and I buy a 6-pack and they offer me cookies with my 6-pack. I said, why the hell would I want cookies with my 6-pack? She's like, well, just wondering if you wanted cookies. It's what we offer here. I'm like, nope, don't need any cookies, but thank you. Then I'm jogging on a Sunday afternoon, and some guy in a pickup truck drives past me, stops, reverses. Now, mind you, fight or flight kicks in. Okay, exit routes. What the hell am I doing here? What's up, dude? Everything all right? Yep, good. You're running because you got to get somewhere, or you're doing it for exercise? I'm like, I'm just doing it for exercise. Okay, see you later. That was it. I said, what in the fuck? And where am I? Like, what is this Pleasantville town, this insanity that I'm in? So I'm over here like, I had some time to reflect, and I said, God, boy, if there was a place that you could send me to be able to not only just rehabilitate myself, but to be able to really absorb the positivity and the kindness and the work and all these positive attributes of humanity, so I can not just be around it and not be affected by the negative by the negative stuff, but learn from it and build that ability to see people, through and through, as people that there's good in them somewhere. There's good. And they're people like that actually do exist. They're not just not like in the movies or like in the Roseanne show or like this. No, they exist, and they exist here. Shit didn't work out with the company, whatever. I got screwed. There was a coup back in corporate. Then I got invited to open up another company, just me and 2 other guys. And then we had a percentage of pay, so basically we'd all get paid 25% of the P&L. So after the profit and loss, and then 3 of us obviously split 3 ways. You'd have another 25% in a pot, which we'd use to grow the company. So I found out that they were months down the road. One of the guys kind of he did it on purpose. He's just not a good guy. So he planted a seed in my head and said, I wasn't really approve of this guy, paying us 35% and you keeping you at 25. Mind you, I was the one who was there 12 hours a day, busting my ass, right? All the time. I was pissed, but he lit the fuse. And I didn't revert back to ways. I addressed the issue. I was ignored, addressed it again. I was let go. Then they concocted a story to not have to pay me unemployment. 2 against 1, they won in the hearing. Mind you, I'm a guy in Wisconsin, turned his life around completely, met the woman of my dreams at TGI Fridays within 6 months or so of living here. And I'm now unemployed with the car payment, with the car, by the way, which I ended up buying from Jim Lucas. So now, I had to pay that.
There's the tie.
So, yeah. So all these things I had to deal with. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? I'm a felon. No one's going to hire me, right? So anyways, long story short, I try to become an insurance agent. I get approved by the state, but because of my criminal record, I'm unable to work as an agent anywhere in the entire state. So there goes the dichotomy of that. So I spent money and hours and for nothing because it didn't work out. And I ended up working for a lot of assholes in this town, small business owners, chip on their shoulders. This town, what I've realized is there's a group of people that have, or just in general, it's a culture of a very cliquish mentality. It's like not what you know, it's who you know.
Right.
And, it's you give them a little bit of money, they're a big fish in a small pond. So I worked for them, and they saw the qualities in me, but they were using my traits as exploiting them. And then when I didn't become useful to them, they let me go. Then I had my son, the birth of my son, September 4th, 2014, which just completely fucking derailed my understanding of my meaning and purpose for being here.
Right.
Because now I saw this human being, which was part of me, and I just flashed back in my life, and I said, shit, obviously I don't want him to live the life I have. I'm going to give him a better life. But then I looked forward ahead. I'm like, what kind of life am I going to give this kid? What am I going to provide him as a person with my background, with my potential, with my dreams, unfulfilled dreams, hopes, and visions, living as I'm living now, unhappy and miserable. I had dreams of being, a suit and tie guy, of working in a corporation and having this fancy fucking title and having people respect me and, closing deals and this and that and getting a dope ass paycheck and having a dope ass car, living in a dope ass house and having a dope ass wife and all this crazy stuff, because I grew up thinking, I grew up in the court system looking at judges and lawyers and probation officers, and I'm like, that's what I got to be. I got to be someone like that.
Right.
That's what success looks like.
Yeah.
So I let that dream go. I said, I can't. This sucks. This sucks like you couldn't believe. If this is what that looks like, I don't want it. Because number one, I wasn't going to work at a corporation. I was a felon, so that dream was was gone.
Right.
And then the other issue was that the people who would hire me were complete assholes, so I wasn't going to work for them either. So I said to myself, okay, so now I have to figure out a way to work for myself. I got to figure this shit out. But along the way, I still got to make a living. So within 1 year, I worked for 11. I had 11 jobs, 11 W-9s that I filled, W-2s or whatever the fuck that I filled out in 1099s. That year, my son, while he was born, he was a little kid, I cleaned toilets for steam cleaners. Again, a guy who worked in an office, who came here for an acquisition. I had this, I still had the ego in me. I still had some pride, I had all that shit in me. But now I was cleaning toilets in offices of people that had cubicles like mine, seeing their pictures, their family pictures.
Right.
I was, doing marketing, meeting other business owners, going to other companies. I was, I did all kinds of shit, dude, that year, bartending, so on and so forth. But I realized that I had to, if I didn't do something now at the age that I was at 31 and figure out what it was, I was never going to do it. So I chose to start writing the story of my life. I chose to write the book and, just start it. I did it while I was unemployed at the library here in Eau Claire on an iPad, and just started writing, dude, writing, cathartic as hell. And I knew that if I wrote the book, I would create an opportunity for myself that no one can take from me. It was the truth.
Yep.
And by doing it, I at least would have the opportunity to help, to give the kid that I used to be some hope, to provide them this whole story of what shit looks like, what going through hell looks like, what the lowest of the low, the demons and all that stuff that you hide inside feels like and looks like. And then having to build yourself up, reconstruct yourself, and then, unprogram and reprogram yourself, and then feel like you had it and lose it all again.
Right.
And then rebuild. So I knew that eventually someone would end up reading the book. And if I would die after the book was completed, or even in the process, because the manuscript is finally done, my son would at least have something to read and say, this was my dad. Like this, he might have been this, he might have been that, he might have, but my dad was a fighter. He was a survivor. He was a fucking warrior. So that was it. And then in the process of writing the book, obviously I ran into certain people, and a professor at UW Stout heard my story, and at a barbershop once, and said, hey, come over and speak to my kids at the criminal justice class I got. So I gave a speech there to 2 of his classes, and the feedback I got, just like you said a while back, kids were like, these young adults were like, dude, I went through some, I wanted to become a cop. That was my goal my whole life. I came to college, did all this stuff. And I did some shit. I fucked up. And it was catastrophic. It put me in a really bad place. But after hearing your story, I said, damn, if he can do it, this ain't that bad. Yeah. I mean, I could figure it out. Yeah, I may not end up being a cop, but I have other options. I can find other ways. There's just hope. It's still there. Another one. And then obviously Boys and Girls Club. I've talked to those kids. And then I started taking it serious. I was working as a bartender at TGI Fridays here in town before they closed down. And, I had a good following. People really liked me. They called me one of the best bartenders in town because I'm just a gregarious. I'm good at socializing, talking to people and engaging people, having them. And, that's what they come there. They get entertained and leave their problems behind. But while I was working there, I saw businessmen. I saw people with titles, people with money. I saw them how they got their sober, what they became when they were drunk. But I got to know these people and hear their stories. And I'll never forget one story. This guy sat there. He had to be in his 60s, maybe late 50s, but look, taken care of. And he said, I'm retiring soon, within the next few months. Worked my entire life to get this. I provided my wife, my 2 daughters, a life, you couldn't imagine. Everything they want. I'm like, how old are your daughters? He told me. He's like, my college relationship with them. He's like, they hate me. I'm like, why? I kind of had, I kind of knew why, but I wanted to hear his version. And he says, well, I wasn't there, man. I did all this shit. I gave them everything they wanted, but all they wanted was a father, a dad. My wife wanted a husband. She didn't want fake boobs. She didn't want plastic surgery. She didn't want a new car. She wanted a husband. So now at 60-something years old, looking at retirement, knowing that it's over at that point, I'm trying to regain a relationship with children who don't want to be with me. And just to see the sadness, to see the suffering, that pain that I told you about that we all experience no matter where you're from. I said, man, I tell you, I never in a million years do I want that to be me and my son to be his daughters, or my daughter to be his daughters. So I decided to take it serious. And I started, I heard Tony Robbins, all the motivational speakers that we all listen to, the guys that change your whole philosophy, Eric Thomas, everything. And I changed my routines. I changed what I consumed on a daily basis. I just changed what I was taking in TV, what I was dedicating my time to. I started exercising, creating that exercise routine to create a dopamine and the serotonin, right? To make yourself feel better. I started reading, of course. I just changed my habits, and I said, well, if I'm doing this shit, then there's got to be other people out there that need to hear something good, that need to, people that I'm from in the Lowell, people that seen me, grow up in the suburbs, that were friends with me, saw the crazy Carlos. There's no sense in me having all these thoughts, because for a long time now, Facebook, I was a keyboard warrior, during the Obama years, I was just, I was getting into political debates and all these debates. And, I thought I was making a change in people's lives while I'm working at the office, wasting hours on Facebook. And it didn't mount up to anything because, people are going to be people. But they knew who I was. They knew the change that I made. But they didn't know the person I was trying to become. Because I said, if I'm going to pursue this road of being a speaker, trying to change people's lives, writing a book, I got to expose myself.
Right.
And the second biggest fear in the world is public speaking. Right under clowns. So believe it or not, as crazy as that sounds.
I get it.
So here I am running on a treadmill. I'm like, screw it. Let me do it. So I just did a video. I did a video, then I did another video, did another video, did another video. Then I said I'm going to do Instagram, so I did Instagram, and then I challenged myself. Before I did it, I said, "You have a challenge," because everybody needs to give themselves a challenge. For 1 year, without a failure, you have to post a video at least 3 times a week. At least 3 times a week, or at least once a week. But every single week, you got to post something. And do that for an entire year. Get yourself out there and see what happens out of it. So I did it. Obviously, I sucked at first, and then I got better at it. Then I started doing, good videos, whatever, in my basement with backdrops and, B-roll and angles and lighting and all that stuff, and invested in that. But along the way, mind you, I'm working as a bartender, making a little bit of money, but not too much. My fiance, Martha Benitez, she's been the foundation. She's been the rock.
Right.
She's believed in me. I mean, imagine being with a person who can't find a good, decent job, who can't keep up with his, with his end of the bargain, and you're now having to sustain everything else. But you see the potential in this person, like huge risk. But we had a kid, and she knew my vision. We sleep with each other every single night. She knows what I think. She knows she's my best friend. She's the only person I confide to. So when that took place, she understood. We both understood this is not going to give you much money up front. Right. This isn't, this takes a while to build, But little by little, you get exposed. People know your name, and ultimately, you start getting those messages on Facebook and on Instagram. Dude, everybody watches the video. One person will like it.
Right. Oh, yeah.
2 people will like it. And the person who sends you the message won't like it, but they'll send you a message talking about how, So it's like, but I got the feedback, and I'm like, wow, people are watching, and people, they are learning. They are changing perspectives. They are being impacted by this. So I'm doing something. I'm not getting paid for it. And my goal wasn't to get paid for it. My goal was to affect change, because I know that if I provide value in someone else's life, I'm going to be of value to the world eventually.
Right. 100%.
So that's all I did, man. That's all I did. And then obviously word got around, and, as you know now, the book is finally, manuscript is done. I got to send it to a beta tester. And then, I just did a speech for the Boys and Girls Club state conference here, where the CEOs were there, and talking about the power of belief, and how these people have the power to drop the seed of belief inside of the lives of kids who might never ever hear that anywhere in their world. And even though the seed may not blossom, they may not even see the kids for decades, but eventually, like me, when it clicks, boy, it clicks. And hopefully that one seed will just become a fucking, huge tree. So that's kind of where I'm at now.
It's an amazing, the story, I mean, from beginning to end, and obviously, the book, The Resurrection Plant, I believe is the
Yes.
title, which is coming out very, very soon. You hit on a lot of things, for me personally, that are 8-ball corner pocket, with when you start to find that belief in yourself and the belief that you can make an impact, when you start to be authentic, when you start to hold yourself accountable, when you set those, you got to post something, one thing a week, 3 things a week, some weeks that's 7 days a week. you really start to, when you start to make those changes and implement those changes, and mine have come, as I'm sure yours did, from just little bits of knowledge that you get from, the low-hanging fruit that's out there, the great speakers, the people that have gone through, I don't know that anybody has a similar story to you, but, people that have kind of gone through some things and overcome, and they've, maybe reached, I mean, I think you're on the journey, and people that have reached, that first level or second level or third level of their journey, and they can pass down, little tidbits of things. Hey, try implementing this. Don't eat like shit. It's amazing what you put into your body is what you get out of your body. And the working out thing and being able to not only do those things, implement those things, share those things socially, because this was referenced several times in this podcast. When you put things out there, you are now subject to the worldwide criticism of social media. And when you start to not let those comments, lack of likes, 11,000 views, 2 likes.
Yeah.
You start to, when you don't let those things affect you, and even the comments that come in, when you start to realize that you're doing something that and that human beings as a whole know, this is a good thing. Working out is a good thing. It's healthy for you. It helps you to live longer. You want to play with your kids longer. You want to do all these things and be a better, more functioning asset to society. Do these things. It works. When the criticism comes in on a workout thing, or trying to do something crazy like I'm gonna write a book on my life, or I'm gonna be a motivational speaker, because it's outside of that cookie cutter box that we talked about.
Correct.
Also, you're not falling into the pattern. You're not going with the flow. You're going against the grain. People will automatically, either because of jealousy or because they just don't fucking get it. They're automatic, and it's a sad state of society that we're in. And obviously, these are the minority. These are the few people that find social media as a place to vent their own frustrations with life and take them out on whoever's in their crosshairs. But when you realize that, man, you start to feel for those people that are posting negatively, and you're like, man, you probably had the potential to do something great today. You could have gone and done something awesome with your kid, but instead you're here on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, starting shit with people. And and then you realize it's not just you they're starting shit with, it's other people. And you're like, man, just think of if that took you 5 minutes to think of and 1 minute to post, and then you followed up on those comments and people that commented on what you said, and if you start to interact with them back and forth, you've wasted hours of your day just spewing negativity for no purpose. For the purpose of, did it at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is obviously rile you and make you come back down to where they are on a different plateau, on a different level. And when you keep yourself above it, you hope they have a realization. You hope for them. You say, man, I hope that they realize that this, once they rise above all this just talking shit to talk shit, they're going to be in such a better headspace. They're going to be able to be like present in their life and enjoy what's out there and learn and grow. And then you kind of, if you move on with it, man, all of a sudden, now you're next level. Now you're growing.
Yeah, dude. And
it's amazing.
Here's how I look at human beings, I guess, in a whole. And obviously, it's just the kind of times that we're in, right? People, they have, if you want to get perspective in your life, like I realized, go to a nursing home and see those people that are just screwed up, can't walk, are messed up, disabled, have medical conditions. And then think of your life in the next 30, 40 years and the road that you're headed down. Look at the people that you're talking about, how they express themselves in that negative way, and then consider the stuff that they're not saying in their heads and the stuff that they're keeping to themselves. I firmly believe that the reason a lot of people don't move ahead in life, or don't, as much as they can post all these memes and Facebook posts about hashtag goals, hashtag relationship goals. Oh, want to live that life one day. Everybody has a dream, a fantasy of what they want to have. But the reason they'll never get it is because this is what they want the world to see in themselves, to see in them. Tony Robbins says the most powerful thing or something like that about the human condition is the need to feel consistent with with your own identity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you identify yourself as being this person, whoever your head thinks that you are, that's who you're going to project to the world. That's what you want the world to believe that you are. If that has negative connotations, if that's a negative frequency, yet you're looking to positive and this and that and all these hashtag goals, you're never going to match that frequency in a million freaking years. So you end up with shitty relationships. You'll end up in a job that you can't stand. You'll end up finding other ways to escape your reality with alcohol, drugs, sex, promiscuity. You name it, there's a million ways to do it. Right. And that'll be a perpetual cycle of toxicity for however many years. And then here's the better part. You surround yourself with like-minded people. So you start sharing in this misery that you're in. Yep. And if you're one step higher, that means your standards are this low, but you're now the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. So now you feel like, oh my God, I'm not doing that bad because I'm not as bad as these losers who, just alcoholics and shit. Yeah. So then you surround yourself in this bubble, right? You create that routine and habit. And then you got a wife at home that you barely see or that you're at odds with, kids that you're now functioning under unconscious parenting, who are going nuts and berserker in this house, who have no rules or discipline, but you're checked the fuck out because you can't stand your damn life. So you're either at the garage building something that no one really cares about, and your wife is drinking wine, and your kids are on the internet being programmed by some virtual, by Facebook or whatever social media. Right. And then 20 years pass by, your kids move out of the house, weren't raised properly by you because you were too busy dwelling in your own shit show of a life. Your wife is looking ahead of divorce or maybe cheating on your ass, or you're probably cheating on your wife, and your life is coming into a mess while your kids are in college now, learning, being taught by some other strangers on how they should think and how they should be and who they should follow and all this other stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then you get to that nursing home stage where Les Brown says, you're sitting in your deathbed, and there are all the spirits per se, or all your failed dreams, all your unaccomplished goals, everything that you wanted to do in your entire life that you could have done, you could have pursued, the potential you had, but because you were too afraid, because you were living under someone else's expectations, because of all these reasons, you never did it. And now they're looking at you saying, we were here, man. We gave you a chance. We were dying for you to use us, but you didn't want to. You just felt other things were more important. And now look at you in your deathbed. And let me tell you one more thing. Me and my father never got along very well. I met him when I was 11 years old. And I moved with him when I was 14. And he, a teenager, whatever, I would listen to his rules. Long story short, we had a very tumultuous relationship for a long time. Then I had my son. My fiance's father, kind of the same way. But when I had my son, I realized that the relationship with my father, we're never going to get back. But my son could have something that I never had. It's not his fault. So what's it going to cost me to mend that relationship? What am I going to lose out of it? If I have to act nice and he acts nice, so what if we're acting nice? Right. We're being nice to each other. That's the goal, right? Yeah, we're never probably going to talk about the shit in the past, and we're probably never going to resolve that. But my son will have a grandfather. Because the number one thing that I've realized about people, why they live with such traumatic issues and they can't get over these traumatic issues, especially kids that live in toxic households with abusive parents or alcoholic parents or drug abusive parents, who become adults and that parent dies, is the number one thing I always hear. That door never closed. Right. That parent said, I'm sorry when they were dying, but I'm sorry didn't cut it. They needed more than an I'm sorry. They needed a whole fucking month to talk about this shit.
Right.
And the parent who spent their whole lives refusing to say sorry, refusing to mend their, just refusing to do what was right because their pride, ego, and a million things stopped them, finally said it at the very last minute so they could have peace with themselves or God, and left that child behind to deal with the fucking buttload of problems that sorry now caused. Mm-hmm. So now we're adding more trauma to these people. And then these people now have to go out and be parents themselves. And it's just a perpetual cycle, bro, that I see across the board with people. And that's why I really feel that, like, this is what I have to do. This is my life. I have to help people like that and I have to prevent that at all cost.
Like I said, the stories, and they'll be obviously further in depth as the book comes out, which we look forward to. The Resurrection Plant, CarlosRicard.com is the website. I can't say thank you enough for sharing your stories, for your inspiration. I think you are dead on balls accurate with all these things you said about everybody needs to take a step back and look at their life and gather some perspective. Be aware, be self-aware, be present in the moment. Take a look at your shit. You know what? Everybody's fucked up. We're all going to suffer. Yeah. Everybody suffers. Everybody's got a fucked up part of their past. Yeah, man. Some people put on a better facade. Some people make they look really fancy and pretty with it. But once you start to accept it and move past it and, go out and find these avenues, go follow Carlos on his socials and watch those damn videos. And if you're not inspired, then somebody should probably check your pulse, because you may be on that deathbed with your dreams and ideas surrounding you. But, thank you so much, and let's get you back on as we get closer to release time. And again, we'll put all the links in the show notes for the podcast. People can link up with you, follow, listen, and everybody go out and be better. And Carlos, thank you, sir. My friend. Thank you. It's my pleasure. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. You're my first podcast, so I can't wait to have many more. Cool, brother. That was great. Thank you, man. Thank you, boss. That was so dope, bro.